HOA called the cops when I camped at my own lake. But what they didn't know was that I had cameras rolling. They showed up with clipboards, flashlights, and fake smiles, telling me I was violating community standards on my land, miles outside their gated world. But when the cops came and I showed them the property deed, everything flipped. Because the real trespassers were them. Hey everyone, welcome back to HOA Stories. I'm Jakey, 28, part-time rancher, full-time trouble magnet. And trust me, when it comes to HOAs, trouble finds me. If you've ever had one of those power-hungry board members trying to control your life, hit that subscribe button and comment BOOO HOA down below. Let's see how many of us have survived these rule-obsessed maniacs. And if you know someone who's dealt with HOA nonsense, share this video with them, they'll feel this one. Alright. Let's talk about the weekend that changed everything.
It started with a sunrise that looked too calm for this town. The kind of morning that makes you forget people can be cruel. I remember the smell of wet grass, the low hum of crickets fading, and Scout, my golden retriever, wagging his tail like he already knew it was going to be a good day. I'd worked the whole week fixing fences, cleaning barns, and deleting HOA emails before they ruined my mood. They were always the same. Polite threats in fancy fonts. Dear resident, you are in violation of Section 9.3 regarding unauthorized equipment near the property line. That equipment was my fishing chair. A stupid lawn chair by a stupid fence. But to them it was a national emergency. So Friday night I said screw it. I needed a break from the madness. Packed my tent, stuffed my cooler, grabbed Scout, and drove down to the ranch lake my grandpa left me. 30 acres of peace. My own slice of earth. Far enough from their perfect lawns and matching mailboxes that I could breathe again. The air smelled like pine and freedom. Water shimmered like glass. I set up camp, lit a small fire, opened a beer. Scout curled beside me, half asleep, tail tapping dirt. For a few hours, life was quiet. The moon climbed higher. And I thought maybe, just maybe, the HOA had forgotten about me. But they never forget. Next morning, sun barely up. I heard a car door slam. Then another. Then voices. Sharp. Annoyed. Female. This is private property, sir. You can't be here. I turned around. Still half in a dream. And there they were. 3 of them. Like a suburban task force sent straight from hell. Front and center was a woman in a beige suit, phone in one hand, folder in the other. Behind her, 2 men, clipboard guys. The kind who nod a lot and never speak unless she lets them. Morning, I said. You lost. She didn't smile. I'm Linda, president of the Cedar Grove Estates Homeowners Association. You're trespassing on HOA-controlled land. I laughed so hard I almost spilled my coffee. You serious? This is my ranch. My lake. You're the ones trespassing. Her smile tightened. Paper shuffle. Lawyer energy. According to our updated boundary map, this lake falls within HOA jurisdiction. All camping, open fires, and unregistered pets are prohibited. Updated boundary. That was her magic word. They'd redrawn the lines. Without telling anyone. And somehow decided my land belonged to their playground. You need to leave immediately, she said. Or I'll have to contact local law enforcement. Call them, I said. But make sure they bring the county map with them. One of the clipboard guys whispered something. She ignored him and walked off toward her shiny Lexus, already dialing her phone. I sat down again, poured more coffee. Scout growled low under his breath. Easy, buddy, I said. Let the show begin. Half an hour later, the sound of sirens slid over the lake. 2 patrol cars. Slow. Professional. The officers stepped out, one tall, one older, both wearing that look cops get when they already know this isn't a real crime. Linda rushed up first, waving her folder like a trophy. Officers! He's violating HOA regulations and refusing to leave." They glanced at me, then at her. "Sir," the older one said, "mind telling us who owns this property?" I pulled my phone from my pocket, opened the county website, showed them the digital deed with my grandfather's name and mine right beneath it. 5 seconds of silence. The tall officer raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, this isn't within your HOA boundary. You're actually standing on his land." I swear you could hear her pride crack. "That can't be right," she said. "We filed an extension." "Not approved yet," the cop interrupted. "Until the county updates the map, this property remains private." The clipboard guys started backing up. One pretended to check his watch. The other muttered something about miscommunication. But I didn't move. I just let the silence stretch. Because silence hurts worse than words. The older cop turned to me. "Sorry for the trouble, sir. Have a good morning." Then they walked back to their cars, leaving Linda frozen, halfway between outrage and embarrassment. She finally spoke, voice sharp but shaky. "You'll regret this. We'll take this higher. Higher than the law," I said. "Good luck." She stormed off, heels crunching gravel, Lexus tires spitting dust as they disappeared up the hill. Scout barked once, like a victory cheer. I looked at him and smiled. Guess we won round one. But deep down I knew. People like her don't stop. They don't admit defeat. They regroup and come back stronger. I spent the rest of that morning trying to shake it off. Fishing, listening to country music, pretending life was simple again. Yet every time the wind moved through the trees, I felt it. That wrongness. That chill that says this isn't over. That night I couldn't sleep. The moonlight hit the lake in stripes, and the frogs sounded too loud, like the whole place was holding its breath. Around midnight, Scout barked. Low, steady, not his usual bark. I sat up, flashlight on. Across the lake, I saw movement. Shadows near the fence line. 3, maybe 4 figures, holding flashlights. My first thought, Linda. My second, proof. I grabbed my phone, started recording from the tent flap. Zoomed in. They were taking photos, pointing at my truck, at my tent, at me. Then one of them saw the light from my phone, and they ran, vanished into the dark. The next morning, I found footprints by the water, fresh, and a single HOA flyer stuck under a rock. Notice of violation, unauthorized camping. I laughed. But it wasn't funny anymore. This was no misunderstanding. This was war. And the crazy part, they thought they were untouchable, that their titles and clipboards made them the law. They had no clue what they'd just started, because I had the footage, the deeds, and one hell of a story about to unfold. The lake was quiet again by noon. But it felt different now, like the peace had been stolen and replaced with tension you could almost see. Scout sat beside me, eyes fixed on the treeline, ears twitching. I poured another cup of coffee, and whispered to myself, "You wanted a weekend off, Jake. Looks like you got front row seats to a showdown instead." Somewhere out there, Linda was probably writing another letter, or calling another meeting, and planning her next move. She didn't know I'd already uploaded the video of the cop visit to my cloud drive, or that I'd saved everything with timestamps and location tags. I wasn't just going to fight back. I was going to expose them, one rule at a time. The sun sank behind the trees, turning the water gold, and I knew this was only the beginning. Because in HOA world, justice takes time, but it does come. You just have to wait for the right moment and hit record. What would you do if your HOA tried to claim your private land? Would you fight back like me, or let karma do the work? Tell me below. I'm reading every single one.
I barely slept that night, even when the crickets started again and the frogs took over the silence. My head kept replaying what I saw, those flashlights, those shadows. The way they scattered when they realized I was filming them. Scout didn't sleep either. He stayed alert. Head resting on his paws, eyes wide open, ears twitching at every sound. By sunrise, I'd already packed the tent. But not to leave. I just didn't want to make it easy for them to claim I was camping illegally again. I sat on a folding chair by the lake. Phone in my hand. Scrolling through the footage I'd recorded the night before. The video was grainy, but clear enough to see figures moving around the fence. And one face, half lit by the flashlight, looked very familiar. It was one of the clipboard guys from yesterday. The one who didn't talk much. So now I knew. It wasn't random. It was planned. They came back after the cops left. Trying to gather proof for another complaint. Or maybe just to intimidate me. But what they didn't know was that I'd just given them proof of trespassing on my private land. And that was something the law couldn't ignore. Still, I didn't want to start a full-blown legal war, not yet. Not until I understood why they wanted my lake so badly. Because that was the real question, wasn't it? Why this sudden obsession with a patch of water they'd ignored for years? I found out 2 days later. It started with a letter. Not an email. Not a notice. But a real letter, envelope sealed, hand-delivered, slipped under my front door. It wasn't from the HOA. No logo, no formal language. Just one sentence typed neatly on white paper. You don't know what you're sitting on. No name. No return address. Just that. At first, I thought it was a prank. But then I remembered the way Linda's tone had changed when the cops showed up. How she'd said, "We'll take this higher. Higher than the law." Maybe she meant money. Maybe she meant buyers. So I started digging. I called an old friend who worked in the county records office. Told him I needed a quick history check on my grandfather's ranch, especially the lake area. He called back that evening. "Jake, you're not gonna believe this," he said. Last month, the HOA filed a development proposal with the county. They want to build a luxury recreation area, golf course, resort cabins, the works. I froze. And they're planning to use my lake as the centerpiece, he continued. They tried to list it under HOA-controlled property, but the transfer wasn't approved because ownership records still show your name. That's why Linda wanted me out. That's why they were taking photos at night. They needed me gone to make their plan believable. The whole violation thing was just a cover-up. Now it made sense, the threats, the boundaries, the midnight visitors. They weren't protecting the neighborhood. They were protecting an investment. I sat there in silence for a long time after the call ended. Watching the sun dip over the lake. The water glowing orange and calm. But it didn't feel peaceful anymore. It felt targeted. Scout nudged my leg with his nose. As if saying, "So what's the plan, boss?" The plan was simple. Fight fire with daylight. If they wanted to play dirty behind closed doors, I'd drag everything into the open. The next morning, I set up a trail camera near the fence line. Another one hidden in a tree near the parking spot by the lake. Then I made a backup of all the footage from the last few days. Uploaded it to 3 different drives. If they came again, I'd have them on video. Clear as sunlight. And they did come again. It was Wednesday night. Just after 11. Scout growled first. Low, warning tone. Then I heard the crunch of gravel under tires. I peeked through the blinds. Headlights off. A white SUV slowly rolling to a stop near the fence. 3 figures stepped out, flashlights in hand. Same silhouettes as before. But this time, I didn't wait. I grabbed my phone. Hit record. And quietly stepped onto the porch. The night was still. So still I could hear the frogs stop croaking when I moved. They were whispering near the fence, taking photos again. Then one of them climbed halfway over. That's when I turned on the floodlight. Boom, light everywhere. They froze like deer. Smile for the camera, I said. You're trespassing again. One of them cursed. Another dropped the clipboard and bolted for the SUV. The last one, Linda, just stood there, eyes squinting under the light. You can't record us without consent, she snapped. On my land? Watch me, I said, still filming. Want me to call the same officers who told you to stay off my property? Her face twisted. You're making this worse for yourself, Jake. You don't understand what's at stake here. Then explain it, I said. What's so important about this lake? She didn't answer. Just turned. Got in the SUV. And drove off. Tires squealing in the dirt, headlights finally on. Scout barked until the tail lights disappeared. I turned off the floodlight. Heart pounding. But not from fear this time. From anger. They'd crossed the line again, literally. And now I had them. Next morning, I sent the video straight to the sheriff's office. Attached the previous clips, timestamps, and the coordinates. 2 days later, I got a call from the deputy who'd handled the first complaint. Jake, we saw your footage. We're opening an investigation, criminal trespassing, possible harassment. You did good keeping those videos. It felt like justice was finally catching up. But of course, when people like Linda feel cornered, they don't give up. They change tactics. That weekend, I went to the grocery store. And when I came back, there was a brand new sign on my fence. Bright red letters. Notice of safety violation, area under investigation. No signature. No seal. Just those words stapled to my wood. They wanted neighbors to see it. To make me look like the problem. Classic HOA move. Scout sniffed the paper, then tore it down with one bite. I laughed. Good boy. Guess that's our version of an appeal. But deep down, I knew it meant something worse. They weren't just harassing me anymore. They were trying to turn the whole neighborhood against me. I could already imagine the whispers. Did you hear about Jake's lake? I think he's being investigated. And that's exactly what Linda wanted. Still, I didn't react. Not yet. Because I had a better idea. If they wanted to spread lies in daylight, I'd tell the truth, in front of a camera. So that night, I sat by the lake again. Scout lying next to me. The water reflecting the moon like silver glass. I turned on my phone camera. And started talking. I told everything, the fake maps, the trespassing, the threats, the resort plan. I showed the footage. The proof. And my deed. Then I uploaded it. Title, They Tried to Steal My Lake, The Truth About My HOA. And just like that, the internet woke up. By the next morning, the video had thousands of views. Neighbors started calling. Some angry. Some apologetic. And one message stood out, from a former HOA board member. You're right, Jake. There's money behind this. Linda's been meeting with a development company in secret. I can prove it. I stared at that message. Felt that cold rush again. It wasn't over. It was just starting. If you caught your HOA sneaking onto your land at night, what would you do? Would you record them or confront them face to face? That message kept me awake the whole night. I must have read it a dozen times. The part where it said, I can prove it. Those 5 words hit harder than anything the HOA had thrown at me. Scout could feel it too. He kept pacing near the tent, whining softly like he knew something big was coming. I finally replied around 2 a.m. Who are you? And what proof do you have? It didn't take long for my phone to buzz back. Name's Harold. Used to be on the HOA board before Linda took over. Meet me at the diner on Route 6 tomorrow morning. Don't tell anyone. That was all. No emoji, no extra talk, just cold, direct words. So yeah. By sunrise, I was already on the road. Half nervous, half angry. Scout sitting in the passenger seat like my bodyguard. The diner was small. Old neon sign, smell of burnt coffee. And the kind of cracked leather seats that had seen better days. Harold was there already. Gray beard, denim jacket, cap low over his eyes. He looked like someone who'd been waiting too long for justice to catch up. He waved me over. You Jake? I nodded. Sat across from him. The waitress came by, poured coffee, left without asking. He leaned closer. Voice low. You got guts, kid. Posting that video, most folks would have folded after the first letter. I'm not most folks, I said. You said you had proof? He took a breath. Pulled out a manila envelope from his jacket. And slid it across the table. Minutes from the last HOA meeting I attended before I quit. Read the last page. I opened it. Typed notes. Signatures. And there, at the bottom, a section labeled Development Opportunity. The text read: Proposal to collaborate with Ridgeview Estates LLC for recreational expansion. Lake property projected value, $1.2 million. Pending transfer of ownership rights. My name was right there. Next to the words transfer in progress. I felt my stomach drop. They tried to sell it, I whispered. Harold nodded. Linda told the board your land was already part of HOA grounds, said your grandfather signed an agreement years ago. But when I asked for proof, she shut me out. Next meeting, I was voted off. So she forged it? Maybe not forged, but she's got someone helping her. Someone in the county records office. I don't know who, but they're altering property files. I leaned back. Heart pounding. So that's why my friend said the ownership transfer almost went through. Someone on the inside was helping them. Harold took a sip of coffee. Then said quietly. They're not just after your lake, Jake. That development company's got ties to the HOA president's brother. It's a family scam. I sat there. Just staring at the steam rising from my cup. It all fit now. Every threat. Every late-night visit. Every fake notice. All of it, to push me out so they could cash in. Why are you telling me this? I asked. You could have stayed quiet like everyone else. Harold's eyes softened. Because my wife loved that lake. We used to fish there before the HOA fenced half of it off. And when Linda turned the board into her little kingdom, I walked away. But what they're doing to you, it's wrong. I nodded slowly. Feeling something heavy inside me settle into anger. You got copies of these files? He smiled. Already did. They're on this. He pulled a flash drive from his pocket and slid it toward me. Everything you need to blow this wide open. I took it. Slipped it into my jacket. And looked at him. You realize they'll come after you for this. Already did, he said, chuckling bitterly. Last week my mailbox got smashed. Guess who I saw driving by? Linda's SUV. We sat there in silence for a minute. Two guys stuck in the same mess, one fed up, one fired up. Then I asked the question burning in my head. What do you think they'll do when they find out I know? He looked at me dead in the eye. They'll panic. And when people like Linda panic, they get sloppy. By the time I left the diner, I had a plan forming. A dangerous one. If I could expose them publicly again, not just with emotion, but with evidence, they'd have no way to spin the story. So that afternoon, I sat down at my computer. Plugged in the flash drive. and started digging through the files. Meeting minutes, emails, scanned maps, purchase orders. Even text messages between HOA board members and a guy named R. Miller from Ridgeview Estates. It was all there. Every dirty secret, every fake excuse they used to make me look like a problem. But one file stopped me cold. A PDF titled Inspection Report, Pending Clearance. When I opened it, it was a report claiming that my lake's water had unsafe contamination levels. Signed by none other than, guess who, Linda Barrett, HOA president. Except, there was one big problem. The report date was 3 weeks before the inspection even happened. They'd faked it. They were trying to brand my lake as unsafe, so the county would approve the HOA taking over for community safety. Smart move. If I didn't have proof. But now I did. I sat back in my chair, let out a long breath, and smiled for the first time in days. It was time to turn the tables. I messaged Harold again. Meet me tomorrow at the lake. Noon. We're going public. The next day was bright. Sunlight hitting the water like glass. Birds everywhere, calm, unaware that this quiet ranch was about to become a war zone. Harold arrived right on time. Camera bag over his shoulder. You ready? He asked. Born ready, I said, setting up my tripod near the lake. We recorded everything. Harold explained the documents, the fake signatures, the meetings. I showed the property lines, my deed, and the altered reports. By the time we finished, it was nearly sunset. The lake glowing behind us like a mirror of fire. I looked into the camera one last time and said, to the Ridgeview HOA, I know what you're doing. And now, everyone else does too. We posted the video right then and there. Within hours, it started spreading again. Faster than the first one. Comments flooded in, people tagging local news channels, lawyers, and even other homeowners dealing with the same HOA. It felt powerful. Like the truth finally had a voice. But the feeling didn't last long. Because by morning, something happened that changed everything. I woke up to sirens. Police cars lined up outside my ranch. Blue lights flashing in the dawn. And at the front of the line, Linda's SUV. She stood there with her arms crossed. Smug look on her face. As an officer walked up my porch. Jake Miller? Yeah. We have a warrant to search your property for evidence of tampering and environmental damage. I just laughed. Because at that point, I realized the HOA had officially gone nuclear. They couldn't stop the truth. So they were trying to bury it under false charges. But what they didn't know was that I had everything backed up. And this time, they were the ones walking into a trap. If your HOA tried to frame you with fake charges, what's the first thing you'd do? Lawyer up, or expose them online like Jake did? I could hear the gravel crunch under their boots. Sirens fading. But that sound stayed sharp, cold. 5 police officers. 2 black SUVs. And Linda standing there like she'd just won the lottery. Scout barked from the porch. Low, warning growls. The hair on his neck standing straight up. The officer in charge, tall guy, mirrored sunglasses, stepped forward. We have reports of illegal dumping and environmental violations connected to this lake, he said. I laughed under my breath. Yeah? Reported by who? He flipped open a clipboard. By the Ridgeview Homeowners Association. Signed by President Linda Barrett. Of course. Linda smiled. Jake, this could have been avoided if you'd just respected the rules. But you forced our hand. I took a step closer. The lake isn't yours, Linda. Never was. She tilted her head. We'll let the law decide that. The officer gestured to his team. We're gonna need to inspect the property, sir. Stay on the porch. I didn't move. But I let them pass. They spread out, checking the water, the tent, even the campfire pit. Linda followed right behind them, snapping pictures with her phone. Every angle, every blade of grass, like she was trying to build her case. I pulled out my own phone. Started recording. Make sure you get the part where they're trespassing, I said loudly. You're all gonna want this for the record later. Linda turned. Smirked. Recording won't help you this time. But she was wrong. Because I wasn't just recording on my phone. I'd already set up hidden cameras 2 days ago, one near the dock, one by the trees, motion activated. Everything they did was being captured in high definition. Scout followed one of the officers, sniffing near the lake edge. Then suddenly, he barked. Hard. Angry. The officer jumped back. Hey! There's a barrel in the water here. Linda gasped dramatically. Like she'd just discovered buried treasure. That's it. That's what I reported. The officer and another guy waded into the shallows. Pulled out a small blue barrel, covered in mud and algae. Linda crossed her arms. Told you he was dumping waste. I stared. Confused. Because I'd never seen that barrel before. You're kidding me, I said. You really went this far? Linda's face didn't change. Evidence doesn't lie, Jake. But her eyes did. And right then, I knew she'd planted it. I felt my jaw clench. But I kept calm. Because the more she talked, the deeper she was digging her own grave. Officer, I said slowly, you're gonna want to test that water and the contents of that barrel before you assume anything. Because I've got video proof of who's been sneaking around here at night. He raised an eyebrow. Video proof? Oh yeah. And timestamps too. Linda's smile twitched, just barely, but I saw it. She tried to step in. Jake, don't make this harder on yourself. No, please, I interrupted, by all means, keep talking. You're doing great. The officer held up a hand. All right, that's enough. We'll take the barrel for testing. Until results come back, you're not allowed to interfere with the area. So basically, you're telling me I can't camp on my own land, I said. Correct, sir. Linda almost laughed. She loved that part. As they loaded the barrel into the truck, I looked at her one last time. You know what's funny, Linda? I said. Every time you think you've got me cornered, the truth just finds another way out. She didn't respond. Just got into her SUV and drove off, smug, victorious. But she didn't know what I knew. That night, I opened my laptop and pulled up the footage from my hidden cameras. And there it was. Timestamp, 2:47 a.m. 2 figures walking near the lake. Flashlights moving. One of them carrying something heavy, round, blue, and metallic. The face was grainy. But the SUV parked nearby wasn't. License plate, RHG 2195. Linda Barrett's SUV. I froze the frame. Zoomed in. And my heart started pounding. It was her. Clear as day. And the guy helping her? The same R. Miller from Ridgeview Estates, the one from Harold's documents. They'd planted the barrel themselves. I uploaded the footage to a private drive. Sent a copy to Harold. And one to a local journalist who'd been covering HOA corruption cases. Then I waited. Next morning, my phone blew up again. The journalist had posted the video. Side by side with my previous recordings. Title: HOA president caught planting evidence at private property lake. It went viral, fast. People were furious. Sharing it on neighborhood forums, Facebook groups, even Reddit. By noon, Local news vans were parked near the road. Reporters trying to get a statement. I didn't say much. Just stood by the lake. Arms crossed. Letting the footage speak for itself. Around 3 p.m., a black sedan pulled up. It wasn't Linda this time. It was her lawyer. "Mr. Miller," he said, adjusting his tie, "Mrs. Barrett would like to resolve this matter privately before it escalates further." I couldn't help but laugh. "Oh, now you want to talk privately? This has gotten out of hand. We can offer a settlement, reimbursement for damages, an apology letter. You think this is about money?" I cut him off. "Your client tried to destroy my reputation and steal my land. The only thing I want now is accountability." He looked uncomfortable. "You realize this could ruin her career?" "Good," I said. "She ruined her own." He left without another word. But it didn't end there. That evening, I got another call, this time from the county inspector. He said they'd reviewed the barrel and found traces of chlorine tablets, the same kind used in pool maintenance. Not industrial waste. Just pool cleaning chemicals. And the barrel still had a barcode sticker from Ridgeview Estates maintenance shed. It was over. They had all the proof they needed. Linda and her accomplice were under investigation for evidence tampering and trespassing. But I wasn't celebrating yet. Because deep down, I knew people like Linda didn't give up easy. Later that night, I sat by the lake again. Scout lying beside me. The air cool, calm, peaceful, for the first time in weeks. The moonlight hit the water just right. And I thought maybe, just maybe, it was finally over. But then, I saw headlights in the distance. A slow-moving car. No sound, just rolling up the dirt road. It stopped halfway down the hill. Engine idling. Someone stepped out. Tall. Hood up. Hands in pockets. They didn't move toward me. Just stood there, watching. I grabbed my flashlight. Shined it toward them. But before I could see their face, they turned, got back in the car, and drove off. Scout barked once. Then went quiet. That's when I realized. This wasn't just about Linda anymore. Someone else was involved. Someone who didn't want the truth getting out. If someone mysterious showed up watching your house after you exposed corruption, what would you do? Confront them or start recording again? That car haunted me all night. I kept thinking about those headlights. How they didn't move. How the driver didn't flinch when I shined the light at them. Just watched me. Like they wanted me to know this wasn't over. Scout barely slept. He kept pacing near the tent. Ears twitching at every little sound. And me? I just sat by the lake till sunrise. Watching that water ripple in the wind. Trying to figure out who the hell was pulling the strings behind all this. Because Linda? She was a pawn, an arrogant one, but a pawn nonetheless. Someone bigger was in play now. Next morning, I drove into town. My truck still muddy from the day before. And stopped at the county office. I needed to see those property files for myself. The clerk, a nervous-looking guy named Tim, recognized me immediately. "Oh, Mr. Miller. I've seen your video," he said quietly. "You really stirred things up." "Yeah," I said. "And now I want to see the file that caused it." He hesitated. Looked over his shoulder. "You mean your property deed?" "Exactly. The original one. Not whatever the HOA cooked up." He bit his lip. Then leaned closer. "You didn't hear this from me, but someone's been accessing that file after hours." "Who?" "A guy from Ridgeview Estates. Name's Roger Miller. Same last name as you, no relation, right?" I froze. Roger Miller. The same guy in the video. The one helping Linda plant the barrel. You still have his access logs? I asked. Tim nodded, whispering. Yeah, and I made copies. Didn't sit right with me. He handed me a folded sheet of paper, timestamps, signatures, login IDs. The most recent access? Just 2 nights ago. I looked at him. You did the right thing, Tim. Keep this between us. He nodded nervously. You didn't see me. By noon I was back at the ranch. Sitting on my porch. Going over the logs. Roger Miller had entered the county database 5 times in the past 2 weeks. Always after 9 p.m. Always the same files, mine. I searched his name online. And there it was, Ridgeview Estates Development Director. But under previous employers. Barrett and Sons Realty Group. Linda's husband's company. So it was all connected. The HOA. The development firm. The realty company. They'd built an entire fake ecosystem of power, all circling around my land. But why? Why this lake? That's when I remembered something Harold said at the diner. They're not just after your land, Jake. They're after the water. I went back through the inspection reports on the flash drive. And found a document I'd missed before, labeled Future Site Plan, Ridgeview Recreation Park. When I opened it, I nearly laughed. They'd drawn up blueprints for a private lakeside community resort, cabins, docks, gated access, membership fees. They even listed the property as pending acquisition. They were going to build a resort on my ranch lake. And all those HOA safety violations? Just the setup to get me out of the way. I sat back. Felt the anger boiling. And this time, I didn't want revenge, I wanted exposure. So I called Harold. You sitting down? Always am, kid, he chuckled. What did you find? Everything. Plans, signatures, company links. The resort name, the investors, all tied to Linda's family. Silence on the line. Then Harold said. You need to watch your back, Jake. They're not gonna let that get out quietly. I know. Someone was watching my house last night. Then you don't have much time. Get that info somewhere safe. That evening, I packed up my hard drives, documents, the flash drive. And hid them in the false wall inside my shed, a trick my granddad built decades ago. Then I went back to the house. Scout at my side. It was quiet again. Too quiet. No cars. No footsteps. Just crickets and wind. I tried to eat. Couldn't. My mind was racing. That's when the phone rang. Unknown number. This is Jake. The voice on the other end was calm. Deep. You need to stop posting. Excuse me? You've made enemies in places you don't understand. Walk away now, or we'll make sure you do. Click. Just like that, gone. I called back. Straight to voicemail. Scout barked again, pacing by the door. I walked outside. Flashlight in hand. There, near the edge of the woods, something glinted under the moonlight. I stepped closer. It was a drone. Still running. Camera lens pointing straight at my cabin. I picked it up, shut it off. Whoever sent that message had eyes on me the whole time. The next morning, I went straight to Harold's place. Old farmhouse. Barn out back. Radio playing low in the kitchen. When he saw the drone, his face went pale. That's serious, kid. They're tracking you now. That ain't HOA business anymore, that's corporate intimidation. So what do? We go higher. We go public. You got all the proof? We take it straight to the news, national level. I hesitated. If I do that, they'll come after both of us. He smirked. They already did. So let's give them a reason to regret it. We spent the whole afternoon compiling files. Dates, maps, signatures, footage. Every lie turned into a breadcrumb trail straight to Ridgeview. By nightfall, we had a complete dossier ready to send. Harold poured us both some coffee. His hands trembling slightly. This ain't just about your lake anymore, Jake, he said. This is about every HOA that forgot it's supposed to serve people, not control them. I nodded slowly. Then let's make sure they all hear it. We sent the files to 5 major news stations, 2 state reporters, and an HOA watchdog group. Then we sat there, listening to the quiet hum of Harold's old fridge. Waiting. Around 10 p.m. we heard tires screech outside. Headlights lit up the front windows. A voice shouted, "Harold Brooks, come out with your hands up." Sheriff's deputies. Guns drawn. Floodlights blinding through the windows. I looked at Harold. He looked back at me. And all he said was, "They moved faster than I thought." Before I could react, the door burst open. 2 officers tackled Harold to the ground, yelling about illegal possession of confidential property. I tried to step in. "Wait, you've got it wrong. He's the whistleblower." One officer shoved me back. "Stay out of this, sir. He's under arrest." They dragged Harold out. Handcuffed, angry, but silent. And just before they shoved him into the cruiser, he turned his head toward me and said quietly, "Don't stop, whatever happens, don't stop." Then they were gone. I stood there in his doorway. Heart pounding. Hands shaking. The night air was cold. And suddenly, everything felt too quiet again. Whoever that shadow was behind Linda. They weren't just rich. They were protected. I looked at the files on my laptop. The copies we'd sent out. If they'd already silenced Harold, then I knew I was next. But what they didn't know was that I had one last move left. And it was something they could never erase. If you were Jake, and the people you exposed got your friend arrested, would you go into hiding or go all in to finish what you started? I didn't sleep that night. Not even for a second. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Harold. Handcuffed. Dragged out like a criminal. For what? For daring to expose the truth. The truth about the lake. The HOA. And the people hiding behind their fake smiles and fancy titles. I knew it now. This wasn't just local politics. It was bigger. They had lawyers. Sheriffs. Even the damn news on their payroll. And if they'd silenced Harold that fast, I was next. I drove home before sunrise. The roads empty. The air heavy. When I reached my ranch, the front gate was open. No tire tracks. No sign of a break-in. But something was off. The little "no trespassing" sign I'd hung a year ago was lying face down in the dirt. Scout was barking nonstop. Tail stiff. Eyes locked on the barn. I grabbed the flashlight and pushed open the barn door. Everything inside was gone. The ATV. The generator. Even the old tools my granddad left me. Gone. Except one thing. A single note. Taped to the inside of the door. "You were warned." That was it for me. I wasn't going to play defense anymore. I turned on my camera. Set it up on the porch. And hit record. I told the world everything. The fake citations. The hidden resort plans. The connections between the HOA, Ridgeview Estates, and the sheriff's office. I even showed the property logs. The emails. The video of Linda and Roger planting that barrel. I didn't shout. Didn't rage. I just told the truth. Calmly. With every pause slicing through their lies. When I was done, I uploaded the video. Titled it, HOA called the cops when I camped at my ranch lake, but they were the real trespassers. And I sat back, watching the upload bar crawl to 100%. Within an hour, it had 50,000 views. By noon, 500,000. People from all over the country started commenting, telling their own HOA horror stories, sending support, offering lawyers, reporters, even donations. I thought I'd won. But around 3 p.m., my phone buzzed. Private number again. You think this ends online, the voice said. You don't understand who we are. Then silence. I looked out my window and saw a black SUV parked on the dirt road. Same one from before. I wasn't stupid this time. I grabbed the rifle, loaded it, and kept it by my side. I wasn't planning to use it, but I damn sure wasn't going to hide again. That evening, a new video surfaced. A news report. With my face on it. Local man under investigation for falsifying land documents and harassment, the anchor said. They twisted everything. Made me look like a fraud. Like some bitter farmer attacking a respectable community board. And guess who they quoted? Sheriff Dales himself. The same guy who'd arrested Harold. It was a setup. A PR hit job. And they were counting on me to fold. But they didn't know me very well. I called the reporter who first covered my story online. Her name was Maya Torres. She worked for an independent investigative channel. Small, but fearless. I saw your video, Jake, she said. They're scared. That's why they moved so fast. They arrested my friend. They broke into my barn. Now they're calling me the criminal. Then let's hit them harder, she said. Send me everything. Every file, every photo, every call record. I'll make sure this goes national. I hesitated for a second. Then sent her the entire drive. If something happens to me, I said softly. You make sure everyone knows. Jake, she said. If they touch you, they'll regret it. That night, I stayed awake again. Scout wouldn't settle. He kept growling at the tree line. I sat by the window, watching the dirt road under the full moon. Waiting. And around midnight, I saw them. 3 figures. Flashlights moving slowly toward the barn. I didn't breathe. I turned off the light and crouched near the window. They weren't cops. They weren't neighbors. Black clothes. Gloves. One of them holding a crowbar. They were here to finish the job. I grabbed my camera. Started recording quietly through the glass. Scout let out a low growl, and that's when one of them turned his light toward the house. He's awake, someone whispered. They ran back toward the SUV. Doors slammed. Engine roared. And just like that, they vanished into the night. But I got their faces. The next morning, I sent the footage to Maya. Within hours, her team uploaded a new video. HOA scandal deepens. Private contractors linked to Ridgeview Estates caught trespassing on whistleblower's land. The video exploded. News outlets picked it up. State officials started tweeting. People demanded investigations. For the first time, they were on defense. By evening, I drove into town to see Harold's sister at the sheriff's office. She said he was being transferred for his own protection. Yeah, right. But when she handed me his personal items, there was something in the envelope that made my hands shake. A photo. Old. Faded. of a group standing near the lake decades ago. And right in the middle was a younger Sheriff Dales. Beside him? Barrett, Linda's husband. Same men. Same land. Different lies. They'd built this empire together. And I was the only one left standing in their way. That night, Maya called again. Jake, it's blowing up. 2 of the investors have gone silent, 1 resigned. The DA just opened an inquiry into Ridgeview Estates. I smiled for the first time in days. What about Harold? Still no update. But Jake, she hesitated. They're saying someone high up is trying to bury this case. You need to leave town for a bit. If I leave now, they win, I said. I'm not running. Around midnight, I was back at the ranch. Quiet again. Too quiet. Scout sat by the porch. Ears up. Watching the woods. And then I heard it. A car door closing softly. I stepped out. Flashlight in one hand. Rifle in the other. And saw her. Linda. Standing by the gate. Wearing that same perfect smile. You caused quite a mess, Jake, she said calmly. You could have just sold the land. We offered you more than it's worth. You broke into my property. You lied. You had Harold arrested. Harold, she laughed lightly. He knew the deal. He was part of this once. Until he grew a conscience. What do you want, Linda? To finish this. Quietly. She took a step forward. Eyes cold. Take down your videos. Sign the sale papers. Walk away. Do that, and you keep your lake. I stared at her. The porch light flickering between us. And if I don't? She smiled again. That empty, painted smile. Then the next time someone trespasses here. She leaned closer. It won't be a warning. She turned and walked back into the dark. Her taillights faded down the road. And I just stood there. Heart racing. The echo of her words stuck in my head. The next morning, the lake looked calm again. Too calm. But deep down, I knew this wasn't calmness. It was the silence that comes right before a storm. If you were Jake, and the HOA leader herself came to threaten you, would you back down or keep fighting till the end? After Linda left that night, I didn't sleep. I just sat there. On the porch. Watching the lake ripple under the moon. Her voice kept replaying in my head. Next time someone trespasses here, it won't be a warning. I knew what that meant. They weren't just trying to scare me anymore. They wanted me gone. At sunrise, I packed a bag. Camera. Documents. Harold's old photo. And something I hadn't touched in years, my father's revolver. Scout jumped into the truck like he knew we were heading into something dangerous. I drove toward the lake road. Slowly. Watching every car that passed. The town looked normal. Too normal. Like the kind of quiet you see right before everything burns down. When I reached the lake, there were 2 county trucks parked by the shore. Men in suits. Pretending to survey the land. I walked straight up to them. This is private property, I said. One of them smirked. Not anymore. Ridgeview owns half this zone now. That's a lie. Maybe, he said. But the papers say otherwise. He handed me a folder. Inside were fake transfer forms. My forged signature at the bottom. They were erasing me. Piece by piece. I laughed under my breath. You know what happens when you build lies on stolen land? I said softly. It sinks. They looked confused. But I wasn't talking to them anymore. I was talking to the lake. That's when Maya called. Jake. Turn on the news. I opened the live stream. And there it was. A breaking story. Broadcast across every major network. New evidence exposes long-term land fraud involving Ridgeview Estates, Sheriff Dales, and multiple HOA officials. Her voice echoed through my truck speakers as she narrated everything we'd uncovered. The hidden ownership papers. The payoff records. The missing environmental reports. It was all there. Everything. They couldn't bury it anymore. By noon, the sheriff's office was flooded with reporters. And Linda's name was trending across the state. I watched it unfold from the lake shore. As those same survey men started packing their gear. Their faces pale. Their phones buzzing non-stop. They didn't even look at me as they left. Around 3 p.m., my phone rang again. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. But something told me to answer. Jake. It was Harold. His voice was weak. Raspy. But alive. They released me. Maya's team came through. Harold. Where the hell are you? At the county station. They're bringing me home. I felt tears burn behind my eyes. They tried to bury us, man, he said. But you dug too deep. They couldn't cover it anymore. You did most of it, I said quietly. You started this. We both did. But Jake, he paused. There's something you should know about that lake. My stomach tightened. What about it? It's not just water. The reason they wanted it so bad, there's a natural spring under it. A resource line. The county planned to build a private pipeline years ago, but it got shut down. Ridgeview's trying to reopen it, illegally. I froze. So the HOA's been covering a utility scam this whole time. Exactly, he whispered. They needed the land rights to dig again. And then the line cut. That night, I sat by the water. Watching the moonlight dance across the surface. All this time. It wasn't about camping. Or noise. Or violating community peace. It was about what lay underneath. Greed. Power. Control. The same poison that runs through every HOA on the planet. And I had exposed it. A week later, investigators raided Ridgeview's main office. Sheriff Dales was suspended. Linda disappeared. Some say she moved to another state. Others say she fled the country. I didn't care. The land was mine again. Legally. Fully. But something in me had changed. I didn't feel like celebrating. I just sat by that same lake. The place where it all started. The place where everything nearly ended. Maya came by to interview me for her final piece. She looked around. Smiled softly. It's beautiful out here, she said. Hard to believe all that darkness happened in a place so calm. That's the thing about suburbia, I said. It hides its monsters behind white fences and green lawns. She laughed gently. But then her expression shifted. You're not planning to stay, are you? Maybe not. Maybe I'll find a quieter place, somewhere without neighbors who measure your grass. She nodded. You know, your story started something bigger. People are protesting HOAs everywhere now. Your video hit 12 million views. Guess I'm famous, I said dryly. More like infamous, she smirked. The HOA hunter. I chuckled. But deep down, I knew she was right. This wasn't the end. It was just the first shot in a bigger war. That evening, I took my kayak to the middle of the lake. The water was still. The air warm. And as I floated there, I thought about everything that happened. Harold. Linda. The sheriff. The board. The lies. All of it. Then I looked down into the water. Clear enough to see the reflection of the sky. But for a split second, I saw something else. A shape. Like a dark shadow. Moving beneath the surface. I blinked. Looked again. Nothing. Just the quiet lake. Holding its secrets like it always did. I smiled to myself. Guess you still got stories left in you, I whispered to the water. But this time, they'll be told on my terms. Scout barked from the shore. Tail wagging. As if telling me it was time to come home. So I paddled back. The sun dipping behind the hills. Painting the lake in orange and gold. Now, every time I see an HOA letter in the mail, I laugh. Because behind all the rules, and fake smiles, and community standards, there's always something deeper. Something darker. And if there's one thing I learned from all this, it's that you can build fences. You can write rules. But you can't stop the truth from surfacing. Not forever. If you found out your HOA was hiding a huge secret, would you risk everything to expose them, or just stay silent and live peacefully?